Hello, everyone. Again, here we are in the Live Unspoken podcast, and we have today another topic which we're going to go through. Going to check it out on what is about multicultural or intercultural relationships, and all about what is happening, issues with it. Is it worth it? Is it not? This is going to be our topic for today, and good to have you again, Paula, here.
Thank you. It's a really fun topic, actually, because a little fun fact about us is I'm a Finn, but I'm in a relationship with a Venezuelan. My ex-boyfriend was actually Italian, and I've never been with a Finn. So I have a lot of experience on this topic.
Interesting. Super interesting. Yeah. I've been, of course, dating Latin women in general, or girls, so to say, because I grew up in Latin America, but also here in Europe, I have dated different people from different countries and cultures. Also, I was married before with a Finn, so I had
and
that.
And your children are also half
I have children, so they are half Finns also as well. Currently, I'm also married with a Latin again. I went back to my roots, and so to say. But also, I've been many years, with these different experiences with Europeans, which is quite different also than Latin Americans.
Of course, yeah. And what about Andy there? I know you have some history with Finnish women also.
Oh, yeah. I like Finnish women. What I would say about it.
Yay! A point for us.
Yeah, but anyway, let's kick out this with this idea of relationships, right? And usually, the multicultural relationships, they always sound complicated. I don't know why, but they also sound beautiful. And then for me, I always found it's something very beautiful to really see two persons, from completely different backgrounds, languages, even religions, all that. And then they come together because of love. Love is a huge, powerful thing. And love is something that is unimaginable, what can do, right, to people.
Exactly.
And I believe also what people are looking for in their life. There's a lot of stuff around love. Love is so many things from, is all the music is about, almost all the music is about love.
Love, yeah.
Poems, art, everything is based on somehow love.
Yeah, love does kind of run the whole world. And actually, talking about how love kind of goes over all the borders of religion, of nationalities, is I just had an acquaintance who is actually Jewish, marry a Muslim woman. And this is during this Palestine war, which has definitely caused a lot of tension between those two religious groups. And I feel like it was such a good testimony to, love overcomes literally anything, even wars. And I feel like that's such a good example of the strength that love gives us. And definitely, yeah, and that part where, I've always traveled quite a lot, and I've seen a lot of different cultures, so I always had this kind of fire in me to find different cultures, and having dated people from other cultures has made me appreciate the world and how different it is everywhere even more. I've gotten to travel a lot because of them. I've gotten to, feel, for example, a Latin American family culture, which is very different to the family that I grew up in, where barely anyone actually is in contact. If someone has a birthday, I might not even be congratulated by my own sister. Whereas in that culture, family is number one. And it's honestly kind of healing for me as a Finnish girl grown up in a not very close family, because now I finally feel like I am a part of family. And that is very, very much a part of the Latin culture, for example.
I mean, these, relationships in general, of course, family relationships is one kind of aspect of it. But then when we talk about also two persons, right? Two persons loving each other. I think that is so powerful in a way that what attracts us? What is the thing? Is it like only the look? Because that's what there's always a discussion, right? Is it the feelings or is it the look? So is it the physical attraction or is it what, right? So sometimes where you probably have had this situation. You have walked by somewhere and somebody look at you and stare at you, and then you have this eye contact. It's so powerful, and then you are like, oh, it trapped you, right? It gets you. So this kind of thing is like when it comes from somebody who you didn't expect it. For example, you are traveling somewhere, I don't know, in Italy, so to say, and then, you know, you have this eye contact with somebody. Or you are in Spain and you have this eye contact with somebody else who is probably not even from Spain, from somewhere else. But, you know, these kind of things, it happen every day to everyone.
Well, you know, this is also another topic that I think is super fun and something that I always mention to people is that usually, you know, a lot of the times a person is attracted to what they don't find in their homeland, right? So my physical type has always been tall, dark-featured men with brown eyes, for example. That is you know, a look that is not very typical of ethnic Finns. So obviously, because of that, I feel like I've always been gravitated towards, you know, the southern ethnicities, for example, Spanish, Italians, Latin Americans. Whereas in Finland, you know, I might get, you know, some comments from a guy on a night out, you know, some, oh, you're pretty, whatever. But when I go to Spain, it's that times 100 because I don't look like maybe the typical Spaniard, you know? So it's always, I feel like we always crave for something that we can't find readily, you know?
Yeah, it's also like, and for me, when you were talking about like, you know, for me, like coming from outside of England, a lot of people also come here and then they are like, very, I think a lot of people have these very first questions when you move to North Europe or, you know, somewhere where it's much more lighter skin and lighter hair and blonde hairs and all that, blue eyes, because many people idealize those looks, right? So in the general, in the world, many people, well, I want to have blue eyes, I want to have blonde hair, you know? And then when you are living here, everybody's like, how are the blondes? How are the blonde guys? You know, I have heard girls talking about this. Like, I like blonde boys, you know, this kind of stuff, or blonde girls, you know, and it's like, well, living here already in Finland is so common, it's so normal.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the normality.
It's the norm, you know? So you want something out of the norm a lot of the times.
Exactly, it's the normality. So, you know, here you've been dark skin and a little bit different look. It might be exotic. But then the blonde is just the normal.
Exactly.
And
vice versa to you know, Latin America or any other country.
Exactly.
So definitely like the opposites attract, I guess, in a way for sure.
Yeah. And but also like, for example, when you, okay, that's the attraction part, right? That you like somebody because of the look or something like this. But then also when you start to think a little bit like, you like this person, you want to go further, you want to get to know it, right? Then starts to be this bonding of creating a relationship with this person. So what makes us go forward? What makes us go in, right? If a Finnish woman or a ex-person, so to say, would not give this openness, you know, to you, or you don't open yourself also, that's up to both, right? So then it will never happen anything.
Yeah.
So this openness of being interested in another look, another culture, another, you know, mix there of a person, then it will never happen anything. You would never have met your boyfriend probably if you wouldn't be open to that. You know?
For sure.
Yeah.
And also another thing, I don't know if you can relate to this so much or Andy, but I think because I've grown up in a very multicultural background, you know, I've traveled a lot, I speak many languages, I found that my love language is English. Like, I think maybe that's why I haven't never dated a Finnish guy, because it would feel weird for me to speak my love language in Finnish. I almost feel like Finnish is not even as rich of a language when it comes to romantic words. Like,
so, rakastan sinua.
Exactly. I feel like rakastan sinua sounds so... I mean, a lot of Finns know. When you say mä rakastan sua, you have to really love them, right? But then, for example, in Spanish, you have different levels of love. You can say querer, which is to like, You know, it's you can say when you're like really interested in someone, but you don't quite love them yet. And then te amo, which is, you know, love. And you say those words to different people. Whereas in Finland, it's just, you know, mä rakastan sua. And I feel like the bar to say that is pretty high. And I feel like a lot of even the like cutesy words, you know, you say muru kulta.
Rakas.
I don't love them. I don't know.
Have Andy experienced this rakas call?
Of course. Come on, I was in a very serious and beautiful relationship with a Finn for almost 9 years. So I definitely experienced all the levels of love around it. So yeah, definitely.
All the levels. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All the levels, as you mentioned, because all the levels is like for a Finn, I think also for anybody to say I love you, I think in English there's only one way to say I love you. There's no other way.
But also, don't you feel like saying I love you is way easier than to say mä rakastan sua? For me, it is. Maybe because I'm you know, Finnish is my first language.
Yes,
maybe.
Yes. Yeah, it's heavier for
but
you.
I've heard this from a lot of people that they find like the Finnish lovey words are like too difficult to be said, like too almost like cringy.
It's heavier.
Yeah, exactly.
It's heavier, kind of in a way.
Exactly.
You know, like for example, like I think in Spanish, like te quiero is easy. You can say it to a loved one or your family or a friend.
Yeah.
Te quiero mucho, you know, all this. But then, for example, like te amo, it's also like, it's a strong word also in Spanish. But it sounds more common because a lot of music is around that word, you know, amar and all this. But then again, it's like, for example, if we think about English in general, everybody's like, oh, love you.
It's very casual. They just like throw it around. That's true.
It's very light.
But actually, the funny thing is when I started dating my boyfriend Nacho, and the first few months he would tell me, "Oh, te quiero," and I was like so hurt. I was like,
"Oh my
what?
God,
Well, am I not worthy of amar yet?" And the day he told me "te amo," it was like the happiest day of my life because I was like, "Okay, now I've got him."
No, yes, it's a big difference, of course. Yeah. But it doesn't mean also to say te quiero, it doesn't mean anything wrong. I mean, you know, you can say to your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend also te quiero, and it doesn't mean that it's less.
It's less, yeah, but
it's
I
not
feel
less,
like I do prefer to hear, you know.
But, you know, if you're in a passionate situation, of course you will use the te amo.
I really want to know what our, you know, viewers think about it. If there is some levels that you think it could be in a relationship, in a situation like that. Te quiero is te quiero. I think it has almost the same amount. Maybe I will say agree with you that definitely it's like one step further. Say I love you. You know.
I feel like it's because te quiero you can say to a lot of other people. You can say to your friends, but te amo you wouldn't really say to your friend, you know? So I feel like maybe that's why, because te quiero is also thrown around a bit more. So te amo is I would say is a slightly more special.
Of course, it's more special. Always will be. And it's also more about, I think the only two people that you will use te amo is to your partner.
Exactly.
And the second one, it might be your mother or your father. You know, these two,
or your child.
Yeah, or your child as well. I mean, between, you know, mother,
but extremely,
child,
you know, intimate relationships.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the only two cases that it will be used. Then, you know, then not. But then again, for example, these relationships, again, go back to that. I'm only thinking like for some people, what they want in their relationship or what they attract to them. Because, for example, I want to say a little bit about my experience when I have been married. And then it's like some things of this, you know, there's a code. It's a communication code also, like physical, you know, there's some way how you communicate through your eyes or your expressions, right? And then you have this body language as well with the relationship. Sometimes things are so different. For example, like a lot of Finnish people are not so expressive. And that is really hard, especially when you come from a culture like which we use hands and faces and everything and touch a lot. And, it doesn't mean touching in a bad way. I'm talking about like, you want to,
No,
you
physical
want to feel,
touch.
you want to feel your partner. You want to hug, you want to do this. So these kind of things is sometimes for many things is like, oh, just keep your distance.
We love our private space. Yeah.
You are too touchy or you are too close. Give me a bit space. So these kind of things can be very confusing sometimes. It's like, okay, so you don't really want me or what's the thing?
Yeah.
You know?
When it's not about that, it's mostly just how we are. And I think for a lot of, especially foreigners, getting into a relationship with a Finn, it's a learning curve to learn how we express love. We're not as lovey-dovey, I think. For example, I don't think, this is kind of sad, but I don't think I've ever verbally heard my father tell me he loves me. Super sad, actually. But I know he loves me more than anything in this world. He just shows it in very different ways.
Yeah.
It not verbally. And I feel like a lot of Finns could maybe agree with me or, be able to relate to that. Whereas I feel like in Latin America, if a kid says that their parents have never said they love them, it's not a very good situation, right?
It sounds a serious thing, exactly.
Yes.
But I think also like actions talk more.
Exactly.
I think in that way also, we probably are from that kind of culture that we talk a lot, but we don't do much actions in many ways. And that that's a very big difference. There, like for example, I think here in Finland, many people may not express it, but then they do something for you.
Yes.
They do something for you. They care for you, and I think that is where all right, that's meaningful.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. That is so true. And jumping into a little bit of a different topic, I just really am very curious to hear, because obviously both of you have had long relationships with Finnish women. What would you say were your main kind of conflicts, cultural conflicts, that either you had to come to some kind of a medium conclusion or you just really couldn't get over?
I will say that for me, there were many things. I like to talk, and then especially for my family culture in general, we talk about issues. We talk about problems. That's the first thing we do when we see.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hide these issues. We talk straight away in the table.
You don't shut it down.
No. We straight away, what's the issue? Let's try to resolve it together. And I think here in Finland, the cultural aspect of going through problems or issues is quite much hidden. It's not actually spoken.
It's like brushed under the rug,
Yeah, it's really not spoken in any way. So I noticed, for example, from my ex situation, sometimes their family knew. For example, there was one family member was sick, for example, and we knew it was a very bad illness and so on. Nobody at the table, nobody ever spoke about it, even if the person was present. And it for me was so strange. For example, in the situation, it's a family situation, For me, it was like I couldn't understand this. Like I would straight away say, like, "Oh, uncle, aunt, are you okay? How are you feeling?" Nobody.
Actually, I have a very recent experience of that. So, someone extremely close to me in my family. I'm not gonna tell who it is because I know he prefers his privacy on this topic. But someone extremely, extremely close in my life got sick with cancer. Actually, 2 types of cancer, and uncurable one at that. So, for us and our family, it was obviously, I've cried many, many, many nights. It's been extremely difficult. Yet, for him, it's a hush-hush type of thing. So he doesn't want anyone to feel bad for him. He doesn't want to mention it to anyone, I've asked him, oh, is it okay if I tell this family friend about the situation? So maybe they understand a little bit of how I'm feeling, the way I'm feeling. I even made some TikToks about, being some of the worst times in my life. And it was like, no, like, it's keep it under the covers, Right. So, and I respect that for him, but I think that also shows a lot about the Finnish way of dealing with things.
Yeah. And I also think that that's something also that, probably is very, ground in the culture. Like you don't talk about bad things.
And you don't complain, I think. I think that's a big thing, that they feel like they are complaining about something.
Yeah, what I see it as, at least how I have seen it is like just simply like you don't talk about bad things, you only talk about good things, and that's all what we talk: positive things, good things, happy things, and then all the bad things. No, it's a secret.
Yeah,
Leave it
yeah,
there. It's for your own to deal
yeah,
with.
yeah, yeah.
A little bit like that. So I think when relationships exist also between two persons, it could go in that way sometimes, which that was for me, at least in my experience, a little bit bad, that I could not speak about
So it's like a
problems.
lack of communication,
A
maybe.
lot, a
Yeah.
lot. And then many things I was ready, like, hey, what's going on? Let's talk. And then she avoided.
Yeah, she like shut down.
Completely like, there's nothing to talk about. And it's like, yes, we have a lot to talk about. And it's like, no, we don't have nothing to talk about. Or I don't want to talk about now.
I must admit, I feel guilty.
Yeah.
Because I do recognize that pattern
Yeah.
in myself, and my partner is more like the way you describe yourself. I definitely a lot of times deny having issues. There's nothing to talk about, and then I will do like silent treatment, which is probably the worst thing you can do, because then you'll never resolve it and you're just like building up bitterness. So
You just let it go
yeah.
and let it go further and further and further,
exactly.
right?
and,
Until
and
exploding.
exactly.
So I think these kind of issues are very different how it's tackled in different cultures.
Yeah.
Also, depending on it's of course up to you. But I also think a little bit like this, that people are so with their personal feelings. They are so protective of themselves. So when they don't know how to deal with, then it's easy just to close up and don't talk about it.
But what do you think? Okay, so we all know that Finland is pretty high up there in like suicide rates. Do you think that? I mean, you're obviously not a professional in this,
Yeah.
but just as amateurs, would you think that would be like a certain factor maybe and like bottling up these negative feelings, maybe not being so brave to get help? Maybe being difficult to get help, maybe being difficult to accept that one needs help. Because obviously studies have shown that speaking about, trauma, negative feelings helps. Speaking out loud about things, it helps.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot for certain say exactly what it is, but I also think that if you don't express, if you don't go to therapy, if you don't talk with anybody, or even with your best friend, it always helps to talk with somebody.
So you carry those negative feelings all on your own, and it can't be good.
Yeah. The point is like, when does it explode? Where does it end? This, because people get all these feelings, they never get rid of it, then end up in what, depression or something like
Or
this,
divorce in
or
a
divorcing
relationship.
in a relationship
Yeah.
becomes abusive,
Yeah.
or then you just find any excuse just to shock all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
crash,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this is also another thing. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm wondering how it's for you, because we talk a lot about that perspective coming from outside here, but then how is for you, because you probably must feel that we are all over the top. Everything is like big hugs and a lot of noise and flowers and chocolates and all this romantic stuff. How is that? Isn't it not too much sometimes?
So I feel like maybe obviously I'm half Russian. I was born in Russia. I've been raised by a Russian mother. And that culture, I would feel in a lot of ways is slightly more similar to the Latin American culture, or kind of maybe in between even the Finnish and the Latin American culture, because obviously Russians are stereotypically known as quite cold. However, flowers, hospitality, family, all of those things are extremely important the way they are in Latin America. I feel like because of that, maybe I don't really have a problem with the like extra attention I get from
courtesy, so to say. Yeah.
yeah, from Latin Americans. I would say I'm pretty talkative for a Finnish person as well, so I don't really feel too uncomfortable. In fact, I would almost say that my Venezuelan boyfriend is more Finnish than I am in many ways. He's
So,
actually
not giving much attention.
no, in the good ways. He's very calm. I'm the one always stressing out, having anxiety. How is this gonna go? How is that gonna go? And he's the one like super mellow. very, very rational, very calm. He's like the grounding power to me. So I would say we're not maybe the stereotypical Latin American Finnish couple, but there's definitely things that we do disagree on. As obviously our relationship has gotten more serious, and now we're in our third year of it. So, especially talking about like children. So my idea of having children is a bit earlier than his. I feel like Latin American men maybe are, we have this stereotype in Finland. I'm sorry to say it, but mamman poika. So you guys may live at home for a while longer. Which
can Andy tell me what is the mamman poika?
Well, yeah, in South America we are well known because we leave the home very late, at like late 25s or maybe a little bit more sometimes. So yeah, I would say, but we are not mama's boys at all.
And it's not always a bad thing also, because I think it also shows a respect and an appreciation to one's family. And honestly, I cannot judge because I'm 24 and I live with my parents, which is very shocking for a Finnish person, I must admit.
It is.
But so yeah, for example, like we've been talking about, kids, and he wants to have them way later than I want. For example, my family name is Joukanen, and it's a very rare family name in Finland. We are only, what are we, around like 70 people, and we're dying out because especially in my family it's only girls, and usually girls are traditionally taking their husband's name. So we're literally dying out. And it's been something very important for me to keep my last name and have it go down to our kids. But then I feel like the Latin American pride is very strong, where the masculine side needs to win in the name category.
He has to have his flag somewhere. That's the thing.
Exactly.
The conquest.
And actually my boyfriend his name is Ignacio Martinez, and he's an Ignacio Martinez of 4th generation. So obviously you are well aware that a lot of Latin Americans give their father's name or have their father's name, and it goes down and down. So I think little tiny cultural things like that. I don't think we've really found any huge issues. I know that Latin Americans, or at least my boyfriend, he was raised by a stay-at-home mother. She was well educated, but she, decided to stay with the kids at home, take care of them while the husband was, working hard, making, money for the family. And I feel like a big difference to Finland is that kind of culture has kind of disappeared here. Like, it's not a very common thing here, whereas in Latin America, it's very common. And in that way, my boyfriend, he really respects stay-at-home mothers. Whereas in Finland, again, is not, it's not too common, I would say. So little things. I don't think we clash too much on those. The name question is definitely going to be a fight that we're going to be having because I want my Joukanen.
Yes. No. If I think a little bit like this, like, many people have the issues when they date or they are starting to get to know better the person, because one thing is to have fun with someone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a completely different thing. But then when you start really digging into the person and getting to know their family and what is their...
And building a life,
Exactly, traditions, and what is your thoughts on this in life about it? Do you want to do career? Do you want business? Do you want what? Family, create a family? All these topics, it change from person to person. And it also like it has...
for sure.
Exactly. And then you have also different opinions. And then, for example, for me, I never thought in my life that, that you will end up being a parent. Because I never thought in my life I will be a father. It was never in my head.
And here you are.
And here I am, right? With 2 kids, very happy. But also like it's something that you sometimes, struggle a little bit with it. And then I think for women, it might be also very different. Because some men, as you mentioned already, some men want to be, maybe in one point when I'm 50, I want to be father. It's like typical men, right? They don't
no
want
rush,
to.
no rush.
No rush. But that's our biological clock,
exactly.
right? That we don't have to rush. But
Yes.
then women are in another perspective.
Yeah,
on
we,
that,
we
right?
have that pressure on us. Especially me, a little bit of maybe TMI, too much information, but like I come from a family line of a lot of infertility, so obviously that's another kind of thing, a little like monkey on my shoulders, kind of telling me, hey, you don't have forever to wait. So it is for sure, I think, also a gender question. And unfortunately, women don't have as much time. So
I was also wondering, like, for example, like for people also, like they are really like started to date. Sometimes it might be also quite different to think that how much the courtesy goes, how much this feminist woman, pride, I don't know how to call it, but sometimes these ethical, codes are different, for everybody. And for example, for me, it's normal that, okay, we invite you a coffee or invite you a drink or this kind of very simple common stuff, right?
Yes.
But then for some people might be also like something they don't want. They don't want that you
Oh.
invite them because they feel that they own you something, or you want sex after that, or this kind of stuff. And it's like sometimes it's just courtesy.
Or maybe they, as a woman, especially in Scandinavia, it's quite traditional nowadays, maybe for women to feel like, okay, if he expects that he has to pay me, does he think that I'm unable to do it myself? Maybe this kind of a thought process behind it. I've made a few TikTok videos on this topic actually, because I feel like I have pretty like old school views on relationships. I have quite traditional views on relationships. And for me, I've always liked when a guy opens the door for me. I've always liked when they, take the chair away for me to sit down on it. These little tiny acts. And on my TikTok videos, I get comments, well, what do you bring into the table? It's not like I don't do anything back and I'm just like a princess who has to have everything done for them.
A baby doll.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The trophy wife, the one that just sits pretty and is quiet and usually like uneducated, whatnot. No, absolutely not. But we can get into it in another episode about the whole
Yes.
relationship equality. I think that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
And an interesting one at that. But yeah. And what about Andy? Do you have any personal any problems with the Ecuadorian culture versus the Finnish culture?
Well, I would say at the beginning it was like a very like hard cultural stuff. For example, I remember this, I will never forget that the first day that we went to make groceries with my ex-girlfriend, and then I tried like being polite and carry all the bags of the groceries, and she was like mad at me. Like, why? Do you think I cannot handle this? I'm not strong enough. It was like oh my God. But I was just trying to be polite. But those kind of things. I mean, she wasn't so mad about it, but it was like a cultural shock for her. Or opening the doors of the the cab or the car or whatever we are going into, and she was also like not complaining, but like feeling a little bit uneasy because of those things, because maybe they are not used to, and we are so used to be polite in that way with women's.
Yeah, and also I have to remind that, all the Finnish women and men are very different with their, views, and so are, South Americans. There's a lot of South Americans, especially in the big cities, that maybe are more into this like new world kind of dating culture. So obviously we're going very much off stereotypes and kind of general ideas of how nationals work, but obviously you can't group everyone into one category.
No. And relationships are also like, especially when we talk about multicultural relationships, are so different. I think some cultures match much better.
Exactly.
I think, for example, like some Europeans, between also European cultures, there's a huge difference there. from East Europe, South Europe, West Europe,
For sure.
North Europe. So, I mean, in Latin America, we all talk like it's a one whole country, but it's not. It's also, there's
Very
differences.
diverse. Very
Diverse, and we all have our own things. Similar, closer, maybe, but they're not equal.
And also, you have to remember different religious backgrounds. Even in Southern America, there's Christians, Muslims. There's some traditional religions, for example, in Cuba, in those areas.
Yeah. Yes.
So you also have to take those backgrounds into account. They definitely have a big influence. Obviously, nowadays there's a lot of like secular countries that are not as like extremely religious. So I guess that could make things potentially a bit easier. But, there's a lot of different things to take into consideration. But I would really love to hear from some of our listeners if you have any experience of multicultural relationships. What are some of the things that you found to be kind of problematic, some things that you disagreed upon, and how did you get over those, or if you ever did? So
please leave us some comments. We want to know also more about it. And I want to remind everybody that this episode was sponsored by Inca Pahtimo, our coffee roastery from Helsinki. And we have been enjoying Inca Pahtimo coffee. It's so great. Thank you so much for this. And you have to try this.
So thank you so much for watching, and see you at our next episode. Bye.
Bye.